Yeah. So today we'll discuss on Amazon EC2. What is the meaning of EC2? So what is the meaning of EC2, Amazon EC2? EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud.
Public cloud.
Elastic Compute
Cloud.
Cloud. Okay. So what is the purpose of EC2? We are what is the purpose? So we are getting computing resources or virtual servers from AWS EC2. Okay, from AWS EC2, we are getting virtual servers, high scalable, high available virtual servers are available. So high scalable, that means we can scale up, we can scale down, and always the solutions are highly available also. Those kind of servers we are getting from the EC2. Okay. So then why we need those EC2 instances? Why we need EC2 instances? See, in order to deploy our websites, applications, databases, to run AI kind of solutions, or maybe any computing we need to run, or data analytics, these kind of applications, if we want to run, we need the servers. And what are the operating systems we are getting from the EC2? What are the operating systems is supported from the
Windows,
EC2?
Windows, Linux, and
Windows, Windows,
Linux
Linux,
and Mac OS.
Mac. Okay, so which is not supporting is Unix. But Azure is not supporting Mac also. Means only Windows and Linux is supported. In the Azure, only like Windows and Linux is supported, but whereas AWS is supporting Windows, Linux, and Mac. So now in AWS we are calling this as EC2, and the virtual machine is called as instance. That virtual machine we are getting from the AWS is called as instance. Whereas in Azure, that is called as Azure Virtual Machine. In Azure, that is called as Azure Virtual Machine. In the EC2, we are calling that as instance. Okay, if you use it as AWS instance, sorry, AWS Virtual Machine also no problem. But people are familiar with the using the term called instance. So if someone asks about what is AWS instance, then what you will tell? What is AWS instance?
Virtual machine.
Yeah, it's a virtual machine itself or virtual computing environment. It's a virtual computing environment or virtual server from AWS cloud. So what is the advantage of using EC2 is no hardware, no OS installations. Okay, so maybe it's easy to take backups, snapshots. So without having any hardware, without having any OS installations, or maybe sometimes patching, backup, snapshots, these all in the manual environment or in virtual environment, very complex kind of things. We need a lot of admins to do those. But in the cloud, it's very simple to manage. These are very easy to manage. Okay, so coming to EC2, yeah. Say what EC2 is providing is EC2 provides on-demand, high scalable computing capacity in the AWS cloud. Okay, so EC2 is provides on-demand. What is the meaning of on-demand? Whenever we want, we can provision those servers. Okay, so on-demand means whenever we want those servers, we are going to get that servers from the AWS cloud. And using AWS, like EC2, it's reduce the hardware cost so that we can develop and deploy the applications very fastly. And what is the advantage of using the EC2 is like whenever we want more servers, 100 servers we can use. If we don't want 100 servers, we can reduce to 2 or 5 itself. And only based on the usage itself, we need to pay the money. Okay, configuring security, backups, networking, managing the storage, all this also is very easy with the EC2. So these all also very easy to manage from the EC2. Okay, any doubts on this?
No, Srikant. No, sir.
Okay, so then, so what are the EC2 terminology we have and what are the features of EC2 we'll discuss. The first term is instances. What is the meaning of instances? The virtual servers from AWS cloud are called as instances, and instances are encapsulated from EC2 provides computing resource. EC2 provides a computing resource. Okay. So then what are the computing means? CPU and memory is called as computing. Then storage is provided by, so we are getting an instance means it's an encapsulation of computing, storage, networking. In that, computing is provided by EC2. Storage is provided by, who is providing the storage? EBS. EBS stands for Elastic
Elastic
Block
block
Storage.
storage.
Elastic block storage. Okay. Then networking is provided by VPC. So VPC stands for Virtual Private
Virtual
Cloud.
private.
So from this we are going to get the instance. So EC2, storage, networking. So these all encapsulated, we are getting an instance. Okay. So we are getting an instance, and if you want 100 missions or maybe some millions of people are using EC2 instances, they no need to install the operating system. Okay, so one of the advantage with the cloud is normally in the physical environment or in the virtual environment we need to install the operating systems. Okay, but in the virtualization also there is a complex there is a concept called template. What is the concept of template is, if we want more servers, I don't create manually that many number of servers. I will create one VM. I'll convert into, I'll convert that VM into template. Okay. Whenever I want 100 servers or 200 servers, okay, I will create those VMs from I'll create those servers from the template itself. Okay, that means again I no need to create from the scratch. Okay, but in AWS environment, AWS itself providing AMIs. AWS itself is providing the AMIs. Those AMIs are called as Amazon Mission Images. AWS itself is providing the Amazon Mission Images. What is the advantage of that is it is having pre-configured OS images. So that means if the client want Ubuntu, if the client want Red Hat, if the client want Windows Server 2016 or 2019, those are already having that pre-configured OS. What is the advantage with that? What is the advantage of pre-configured OS? So
We
we
can
no
easily
need to
deploy.
install. We no need to install the OS. We no need to install the OS. Okay. In VMware environment, at least one VM we need to create. But in the cloud, already those AMIs are available. In the cloud, can you tell me who is responsible for AMIs? In the cloud, who is responsible for AMIs? AWS itself is providing the AMIs. AWS itself is providing the AMIs. Hence, what is the main advantage is we no need to install the operating system, and within 2 to 5 minutes itself, our operating system is loading. If there is no template or AMI kind of concept, in order to install the OS, it will take minimum 30 minutes to 1 hour. Okay, but here very faster provisioning of VMs is possible by using the AMIs. By using the AMIs, very fastly we can provision the instances. Okay, so then those pre-configured environments OS images, we may have some add-ons also like applications, and even it may include the databases also. So can you tell me, say suppose I have a Windows server with maybe SQL server is I want then after taking Windows server instead of installing SQL server, already AMI may be available with the database also. Or I want AutoCAD, that AutoCAD image may be available. Or I want with SAP, with that SAP it's may be available. Like this, it's not only the OS level, some of the AMIs are available with the databases and pre-configured applications also. Okay, then who is going to provide those AMIs for us?
Amazon.
AWS is going to provide. Otherwise, as a community, other people or other companies also may provide the community. And we have commercial images also. Those are called as marketplace. If you purchase the image from the marketplace, then we need to pay the money for that AMI provider also. Okay, if you purchase the AMIs, what we need to do? We need to pay the money for that
Providers.
provider also. For that provider also, we need to pay the money. And one more option is there. We can create our own images also. There are a lot of use cases why we need to create our own images also. Okay, so our own applications maybe not available directly from the marketplace or community. Then we need to prepare our own images also. So how to create the images, all these also we'll discuss. Okay, but can you tell me what is if your understanding of AMI? What is your understanding of AMI?
It will provide the configured
It's already
images.
configured. Images are available. Just we need to use those images. It will reduce lot of time to install the OS, to install the patches. Everything up to date, ready-made images are available for us. Okay, just we need to spin up those, or we can launch those instances and we are going to use them. Okay, so what is the main advantage is provisioning of that virtual machine or instance is going to happen very fastly. Okay, but one of the thing we need to consider is always use AMIs from the trusted vendors itself. That means from the unknown vendors is risky sometimes to use the AMIs. Mostly from the trusted vendors itself use the AMIs. Okay, AWS anyhow is our trusted vendor. If that is AMI verified one, recommended to use. From unknown vendors, it's sometimes risky to use those AMIs. Okay, so then say here what is the meaning of Amazon Mission images? Pre-configured templates for our instances that package the components we need. That's maybe operating system, softwares, applications. Otherwise, we may have databases. All those as the AMI, we are going to get it. We are going to get that AMIs. Okay, so then we are going to choose the instances and maybe like in the instances size or instance types we have lot of instance types we have. What is that we'll discuss. So what is the concept of instance type is like when you want to purchase a hardware or laptop, you will decide which type of CPU you want, how much RAM you want, how much storage you want. So like this, there would be a lot of factors. So now here we are going to use the AWS. AWS provides various hardware options for us. Okay, so I want a very high computing kind of servers. I want for the graphic kind of applications or gaming kind of applications I want to run, or I want to use more like memory kind of applications which consumes more memory kind of thing. So it depends upon our requirements. AWS provides different hardware options and CPU options, memory, data transfers. So data transfers mostly will measure through IOPS, input and output per second. Better to have more IOPS or less IOPS? So it's recommended to have more IOPS or less IOPS? So it's always recommended to have the more IOPS itself. Okay. So AWS provides us various hardware options, CPU, data transfers. Okay. So what is the size of EBS volume? So according to this, our pricing is going to be changed. But different type of CPU, hardware, and memory options are available with the instance type. Okay, so we need to choose the or we need to suggest the best suitable instance type to the client. Okay, that means we need to suggest the best suitable type of instance type, and if that like resizing of instance type is also is very important for billing wise. That means if we don't suggest the right size of instance type, either applications are maybe not running properly or unnecessarily user is paying more money also because he is not using the utilization. Okay, he is not paying the money. So that's the reason always we would be continuously monitor, and always we need to suggest the right size of instance type to the client. Okay, so that is our job role. And by default, when we are using practice purpose, we are going to use T2.micro. So what is the advantage of using T2.micro is for the practice purpose, it is a free tier account. It's a free tier account. Okay, so that means for 750 hours, as we are creating one free account, AWS is providing this 750 hours to access the T2.micro. In the T2.micro, how many CPUs we are getting is one CPU, but that is not the physical CPU. It's a one virtual CPU and 1 GB RAM we are getting. 1 GB RAM we are getting. Okay, so within that 750 hours, mostly that would be the monthly cycle, and we can get one CPU and 1 GB RAM. And in some regions, T2.micro is not available. Okay, so T2.micro is not available. In those regions, AWS is giving T3.micro. Okay, so when T3.micro is free for us, in that region, if T2.micro is not available, then AWS is giving us T3.micro as the free tier. But T2, T3, like these micro kind of instances, we shouldn't use in the real time because these are very lightweight, only for maybe dev environments or in the very small kind of applications we may use. We need to use some realistic kind of workloads we will have. In order to bear that, we will suggest some other types of instance types. But what is the concept of instance type is AWS provides us various hardware options. The types of CPU, memory, hardware changes from one type to another type and depends upon the client requirement. We need to suggest the best type of instance, and we need to resize the instance size also. Then the cost can be reduced. Then the cost can be reduced. And in the EC2, what is the meaning of E? In the EC2, what is the meaning of E there?
Elastic.
Elastic. So what is the concept of elastic is? It's going to be high scalable. Okay, so computing resources are available. So what is that meaning is we can scale up or we can scale down also. So we can scale up or we can scale down the resources. What is the meaning of scale up is where if the more load comes, we can scale up. If less load comes, we can scale down. In this scaling, we have two types of terminology. One is vertical scaling and the second one is horizontal scaling. So what are the two types of scaling we have? One is vertical scaling, second one is horizontal scaling. So what is the concept of vertical scaling is, say you have a laptop, assume uh, your laptop is not able to install the applications. Then you may go for upgrading the laptop. In upgrading the laptop, what are the things you can upgrade? Maybe CPU or maybe
Hard disk.
RAM or storage like this. But instance size is not increasing. Okay, we are increasing what? We are increasing
CPU.
instance resources. So we are increasing the instance resources. Those are called as
Vertical scaling.
vertical scaling. So we are increasing our instance resources. Okay, the number of the count of instances are same itself. Like here, we are increasing CPU, memory, or maybe storage, or IOPS, and one more metric is there, throughput. Okay, so these all the things we are trying to increase. So this kind of scaling is called as vertical scaling. This kind of scaling is called as vertical scaling, and horizontal scaling is we are increasing we are increasing number of instances. So we are increasing number of instances Okay, then that is called as a horizontal scaling. Okay, that means assume we have 10,000 users. I'm running around 40 servers, but suddenly I got a spike of 1 lakh users. If I got 1 lakh users, maybe these 40 servers or 50 servers are not able to bear that load. I want to scale up to maybe around 200 to 300 servers. Okay, so that's kind of feature is called as horizontal scaling. Okay, say AWS supports both the scaling options. It supports vertical scaling and it supports horizontal scaling also. Mostly in the real time, in order to bear more load of users, we need to go for horizontal scaling. Okay, AWS have one feature called as AWS auto scaling or EC2 auto scaling supports horizontal auto scaling. Horizontal auto scaling. Okay, then if you go for the vertical scaling, in the vertical scaling, we need to change the instance type. Choose a high-end type of instance, then it's going to perform the vertical scaling. It's going to perform the vertical scaling is going to be performed. So that is the reason AWS is calling the term called elastic. High scalable computing resources, high available kind of resources are available in AWS. Okay. So what is the difference between vertical scaling and horizontal scaling? What is the difference between vertical scaling and horizontal scaling? So in the vertical scaling, we are increasing the instance resources, like from the count is not increasing. Okay, say CPU, memory, storage, throughput, IOPS. So these kind of features we are increasing. In the horizontal scaling, we are increasing more number of, we are increasing
Instance.
more number of instances. We are increasing more number of instances are increasing. Okay, so then AWS supports which type of scaling, vertical or horizontal?
Both.
AWS supports both. Okay, using the AWS EC2 auto scaling, we are going to perform horizontal scaling, and vertical scaling can be done through changing the instance type. In order to change the instance type, a small like a shutdown is required. Means if you want to change the instance type, we need to shut down the instance. But automatically auto scaling is that means horizontal scaling can be done by default without requiring the reboot also, or without requiring shutdown. Okay, any doubts on this? Any doubts? Okay, so then like we have the instance types, right? So various configurations of CPU, memory, storage, network capacity, graphic, even there would be a lot of graphic kind of requirements also. AWS keeping some special hardware for the graphic kind of requirements. There would be gaming kind of requirements or multimedia, gaming development kind of thing, or maybe like movies, all these also rendering media kind of content. All these we are going to have a special NVIDIA kind of graphic cards, or more GPUs are required compared to CPUs. Those kind of hardware also is available from AWS. Okay, so it depends upon the client requirement and the client budget. We need to suggest the right size of instance type. Right size of instance type we need to suggest, depends upon the client requirement. Okay, so then we have the key pairs. What is that key pairs we'll discuss? So normally, if you have a one server, okay, or maybe your laptop also, we may have a username and password. Okay, but AWS not recommending to use the password. Okay, they're providing key pair. As the name suggests, key pair, we have two types of keys. One is public key and the second one is private key. Both have been paid and encrypted kind of thing. Okay, say public key is with the instance. Public key is with instance and private key AWS provides for us. Okay, so then both have been paid. Public is so just like in your home, you may have a lock and key, right? Both have been paid or not. If I have another key, I can't open with another lock. So definitely both have been paid. So here in the key pair, we have one is public key and private key. So where is the public key? Public key is already with the instance, and AWS provides the private key for us. Okay, instead of password, say here what we are doing is without password, we are logging to AWS instance. Okay, but we need the security, right? For that, we have the private key. Okay, say without having the private key, connecting to that EC2 instance is almost impossible. Okay, so without having the private key, it's impossible to log into AWS instance. Compared to password, always private key is the best or secure way compared to the password also. Okay, so compared to the password, private key is more secure kind of thing. That is the reason AWS is using key pairs. And that private key format will get in two formats. One is .pem file, second one is .ppk file. Okay, one is PEM file, second one is PPK file. PEM file stands for Private Enhanced Mail. PPK file stands for Putty Private Key. So Putty Private Key. So these two formats are available for us. One is PEM format, second one is PPK format. So which format you want, you can download. And encryption algorithms wise, RSA is the one of the popular encryption algorithm. So most of the people are using RSA encryption algorithm, but now they are going to support ED 229 something, a new algorithm also it got. Okay, so that algorithm they are going to use. Okay, same. So these two are the two different encryption algorithms also. So ED something and RSA is something. So it depends upon your client requirement. We need to choose the which algorithm type you want also. So but RSA is the most popular encryption algorithm most of the companies uses. So what is that meaning of key pair? In order to secure our login information to your instances, AWS is providing the key pairs. AWS stores the public key and they are going to share the private key for us. And we need to give the key to the users who are accessing that instance. For the unauthorized users, we shouldn't provide that key pair. And always we need to secure our key pair because if you lost your key, it's almost impossible to connect to that. It's almost impossible to connect to that instance. It's
Instance.
impossible to connect to that instance. Okay, so then normally in your laptop you will have a hard disk, right? Your operating system has been loaded in that, and your data has been loaded. And if you shut down, if you restart also, our data is persistent. Is it correct or not? In the same way, in the EC2 also, AWS providing EBS volumes. What is the concept of EBS volumes is? It's a persistent storage volumes. If you shut down your instance, you restarted your instance, you keep hibernate mode kind of thing, or you terminated the instance also, the data can be persistent. Okay, so for your persistence of your data, we are going to use EBS volumes. Okay, so the data should be existing. Even if you delete the instance also, the data is persistent. Okay, but prior there is one more type also, instant store volume. What is the concept of instant store volume is? That is a temporary kind of data. That means we will lose our data when we stop or hibernate or terminate. But now AWS is mostly providing EBS volume itself. Can you, but in the interview, people are asking the difference between instant store volumes and EBS volumes. Can you tell me the difference between instant store volumes and EBS volumes? What is the difference between instant store volumes and EBS volumes?
Instant storage volume means a temporary data we can save.
Yeah, so what is when the data is getting deleted till the end of the session only, the data would be there.
Yes.
Once the user restarts or once the user stop, then automatically the data is getting deleted.
Repeated.
Okay, so but today mostly we are using EBS volumes itself. The data is persistent. The data is persistent. Okay, so even if you restart, if you hibernate or terminate the instance also, but by default the behavior is when we terminate, that instance volume also is getting deleted. But we have the option. Okay, so we have the option. We can keep our data persistent even if you delete the instance also. But what is the by default behavior is, if you terminate your instance, automatically the DBS volume also is getting deleted. Automatically the DBS volume is also is getting deleted. Okay. Any doubts on that?
No, sir.
Okay. So then what are the regions? All these we'll discuss. Regions, available zones, local zones, outposts, wavelength zones. I'll explain. And another very important from the EC2 terminology wise is security groups. So security groups in the Azure it's called as NSG, network security groups. In AWS it's called as security groups. AWS, for every instance, by default it provides a virtual firewall. By default it provides a virtual a firewall. Okay, so we need to configure firewall ports or firewall rules. Okay, so those rules are called as security groups. I'll tell one example. So while configuring the rule, you may need to support which protocol it need to support, like TCP, UDP, or HTTP, HTTPS. There are a lot of different protocols and that corresponding port number and from which IP address we want to access that. So these kind of rules we are going to define in the security group. Okay, and most of them are inbound rule and outbound rules we have. So we have the inbound rules and outbound rules we have. Okay, so those rules we are going to configure in the security group. Okay, if it is a Linux instance, in order to connect remotely that Linux instance, we need to open SSH port 22. Secure host 22 port should be opened. Otherwise, it's impossible to connect to Linux, remote Linux server. Even in the AWS instance also, in the security group, we need to open this port. Can you tell me whether it's an inbound rule or outbound rule? It's an inbound rule or outbound rule?
Inbound.
Yeah, it's an inbound rule. Okay, that means outside to we are connecting to that instance. For that is to the instance, it's an inbound rule. What is the outbound rule is the traffic is going from server to the traffic is going from the server to outside. That traffic is outbound. Mostly outbound, we are open all traffic, but we are restricting what is the inbound traffic coming to that server. Okay, for the Linux instance, if we want to connect, it's mandatory. We need to open the port number is. It's mandatory. We need to open the port number. That port number is 22. Okay, if it is a Windows instance, in the security group, we need to open the port number RDP. That is called as RDP Remote Desktop Protocol, and that port number is 3389. If you don't open, it's not possible to connect. And we hosted some websites, assume. Then I hosted a website using like my web servers kind of thing. Then definitely we need to open the port number HTTP. But most of the websites today uses encryption kind of things. That is the reason we are going to use HTTPS. What is the port number for HTTP is 80. For HTTPS is, what is the port number for HTTPS? 443. So these port numbers definitely we need to open. These port numbers we need to open in the security, in the inbound rule or outbound rule? The
Inbound.
outbound, sorry, in the inbound rule
Inbound
we
rule.
need to open. In the inbound rule we need to open. So these kind of security firewall rules are called as, this kind of firewall rules are called as security groups. Security groups. Okay, so then who providing the network for us? VPC. Okay, so when we go for the VPC, VPC provides us one public IP and one private IP by default. Okay, over the internet, we can connect to that instance using the public IP itself. Over the internet through private IP, we can't access. Okay, for internal communication, we can use that private IP address. For the internal communication, we can use the private IP. Over the internet, in order to connect to that, we are getting the public IP. Okay, so by default, we are using default VPC. For every region, AWS provides a default VPC. That VPC itself we are using. But going forward, in the VPC concept, we will create our own VPC. Say going forward in our real time also, first we don't create the instance, we will create the networking itself. That means we will create our own VPC, then we'll create the instance. Okay, but as of now, what we are using is already AWS provided the default VPC. That VPC we are going to use it. That VPC we are going to user, and VPC providing for an instance a public IP and private IP have been provided, but the public IP we are getting from AWS. What is the public IP we are getting from AWS is what is the public IP we are getting from AWS is dynamic. What is that meaning of dynamic is? It's maybe keep on changes also. Okay. So if we restart our instance, we may lose that public IP. Okay. Or if you shut down and later if you start after 1 hour sometime, there may be chance of losing that public IP. Okay, say here what we need to do is if we purchase elastic IP that is fixed for us. Okay, say static public IP we need to purchase. But by default, AWS is providing a public IP, but that is dynamic kind of thing. What is the meaning of dynamic here? If you restart or if you shut down your instance, that IP maybe changes. But I don't want to change like that. I want a fixed kind of thing for my web server kind of requirement. Then we need to go for elastic IP. Elastic IP. And there is one more term is there called as tax. Okay. So we can attach the tax to any of AWS resources. Say in this use case, our resource is EC2 instance. Okay. If you attach the tags to instance, we can search or filter that resource based on tags. We can search or filter that resource based on the tags we can search or filter. Okay. Say, assume if I have 500 resources, some VPCs, some instances, and 100 belongs to USA, and 100 in those itself maybe sometimes it belongs to one project like maybe one project. Okay, so then depends upon this kind of category, I'll give the tags for them. Then I want to search all US related. Then based on the USA tag, I'll search. Or based on maybe Mumbai, I have some resources in Mumbai. If I attach the tag on Mumbai, I'll filter or search those resources. What is the main advantage of adding the tags? You can search or filter the resources. If you don't attach the tags also, is nothing is going to happen. If you don't attach the tags also, nothing going to happen. But in the large scale, when we have more resources, it's a little tough to search or filter the resources. At that moment, tags will help us. It's a pure optional kind of feature. But what is the advantage of having the tags to the resources? What is the advantage of having the tags to the resources?
Can easily find the
Yeah, we can search or
resource.
filter that resources. Okay. So we need to configure all these. And once we launch our instance, from that AMI, an instance is going to create. Okay, once we spin up our instance, from that AMI, an instance is getting created. Okay, so tomorrow we'll create that instance and we'll connect to those instances. We'll create those and connect to those instances. Okay, any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, so tomorrow we'll create those instances.
Sure, Srikant.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yes, sir.